God-given, and it's also...
It's never been...
Putting the squeeze, they make money on...
Excessive materialism and militarism. We know full well that racism is still that hound of hell.
Yay! I'm really bad at starting these things.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, I should be at a normal distance from this. I was rocking back and forth. I'm a very fidgety person too.
Yes.
So I don't know.
But welcome to Now in Color, the podcast that brings those who have been erased in history back to life, giving them the voice and place that they deserve. I'm your host, Sandie Chang, and with me on sound is Scout Woodhouse, and I'm joined today by...
Niccolo Aeed. Thank you guys so much for having me today.
Yes. Can you tell me a little bit about yourself?
Yeah.
This is my second time meeting you.
Yeah. Well, we worked together several years ago, but in a very big company. So my name's Niccolo Aeed. I'm a writer and director, and I do stand-up and storytelling too. I'm half of the comedy group called Marina and Nico, and I write like plays and sketch comedy and things like that, and you can... Google Marina and Nico and see some of our stuff.
Awesome. Are you working on anything right now?
Oh, yeah, definitely. And actually, earlier today, someone told me, remember to plug this.
Yes. Gotta plug it. Gotta plug everything.
We're working, I'm writing a new kind of audio drama for the Truth Podcast. The Truth Podcast, you can find it on podcast developers everywhere, I guess. And it's kind of like a radio drama, so it's a 4-part series that we're writing, and that'll be out in October.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yay. Well, you guys should definitely check that out. I will check it out too.
Great. Thank you.
I'm so excited.
Yeah.
So last time I saw you, I was super sad, and I'm so sorry about that.
No, it was great. It was great. We saw a great play together.
Yes, we did. We saw Dutch Masters.
Yeah, I liked it. Actually, every now and again, I still think about that play. That was a good play.
I really liked it. It was really emotional. For those who don't know, it was written... No, it wasn't written. It was directed by someone in Moonlight.
Andre Holland, I think is his name, who I like a lot.
Directed or right?
He directed it, I think.
Yeah.
He was hanging around. He was hanging around at that.
Oh, was he?
Yeah, he was like, and people were like, anyway, that's the cool thing about theater in New York.
Yes. You always see famous people. Just lurking.
You always see the third lead of Moonlight somewhere.
Yes.
You'd be like, who's that guy? And you're like, you know him. And you're like, oh, yeah.
Moonlight. I recently watched Moonlight like a couple months ago. And
for the first time?
Yeah, and I was like, what was I doing with my life? Why didn't I watch this sooner? It was so beautiful.
It's so beautiful. That's a movie I can't stop crying at. That's a great one.
I know. So good. Well, and Dutch Masters was also very emotional.
Very good. Very emotional.
I wasn't expecting that ending. I don't know if it's ever going to come out anywhere else, so I'm like, I don't want to spoil it either.
Yeah. But it's also just cool to know what happens in a play when other people don't know what happens in a play because they don't go to the theater. Exactly. So it's their loss.
Maybe you'll appreciate this because you're into theater.
Yeah.
Last night I watched the worst thing of my life.
Oh, please tell me all about it.
It was supposed to be dramatic, and I started laughing in the middle, but I didn't laugh out loud, but it was like one of those like...
Could you feel the room also feel what you were feeling?
No, because everyone in the room was super into it, and I was like, am I fucking crazy? But... whatever, no one's gonna know me. Basically, it was Comfort Women, the musical.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
Yeah. And going into it, I was like, they've made dramatic things about you. Made it into musicals. Like, maybe it's, like, gonna be fun, like the next Hamilton. It was so bad.
Was it, were Asian people behind the musical? Or was it, like, too many white people on stage or too many white people in the audience?
It was a lot of white people in the audience. It was written by, I guess, one Korean person and two other, it was confusing because, like, the book was written by someone else and the lyrics were written by someone else. I think it was, like, the intention was good, but the execution was just so...
Yeah.
At least to me, kind of distasteful because there was, like, this... there was a rape scene, because I don't know if anyone knows about the Comfort Women.
Yeah.
So the Comfort Women were, for those who don't know, in World War II, Japan took over Korea, and then they, like, basically kidnapped and, like, lured all these women to their camps and basically made them sex slaves and like raped them whenever they wanted to, and it was just like
it's a massive war crime, right?
And it's like
so
awful.
It's literally that Springtime for Hitler musical that they made in the producers, except without the meta element to it.
Yes, so it was like that, and the first like rape scene, I guess, was like an interpretive dance, and I was just like, what is happening? And like everyone was just like, wow, that was so powerful. But I was just like, am I watching the same? You guys are making like a Disney version of this like horrible war crime, and like massive sexual violence that only recently people were like, oh yeah, this totally happened. Where it was like one of those buried.
That's messed up. Did you know people in the production? Did you have to congratulate them after?
I thankfully didn't.
Oh, that's good.
A friend of mine had a friend in it, and then she was like, "What did you think? I thought you'd really like it because you're Asian, Asian American, and like you're supporting." And I was just like, I thought it was horrifying, and that's all I said. I was like, I need time to think about it, and it was, and also like the Japanese soldiers. They all took on like a broad Asian accent, whereas all the Korean people were, standard American English accents. Oh, that's
messed up.
And I was just like, am I imagining this? Like, there's like this weird like villain, like all Japanese soldiers were like totally one-dimensional evil, which they were evil for doing this.
But it's also weird that they have the Asian accent, right? Like that's like.
And I was just like, what?
If no one, the others don't,
And the soldiers would run off stage screaming bonsai every so often, and I was just like, what am I watching? But everyone leaving the theater, I could hear them being like, wow, that was so powerful.
I hate that.
It was so poetic. And I was like, what?
You're all fools and you don't know what art is.
So I was just like, oh no. Well,
that's rough.
I'm never gonna get cast in that, so it's okay. There's my review of
that's the thing with like bad theater or whatever. You first are like, this is a horrible representation, and then you're like, are they casting? Could use a job. Is this the only job? Is horrible representation a job? Okay.
I think that's like part of why I've been like not rushing to audition, because I'm just like, it's just gonna be a bad representation for the most part, except for Crazy Rich Asians.
But we can get a bunch of sequels going for that.
Yes. I'll just be another rich Asian. But if you're in New York, I don't recommend seeing Comfort Women. It was, unless, I don't know, maybe you will like it.
No, stick with it. We're against Comfort Women.
I'm against it.
We're against Comfort Women.
I really wanted to like it.
And the full title is Comfort Women the Musical.
Comfort Women, a new musical.
A new musical. And the songs are happy or sad.
Oh, God. That was, like, another thing. They would, like, break out into song in the most inappropriate times. Like, right after, like, a horrible sexual violent thing had happened to one of the women, they would be like, I didn't even want to be here, and all this stuff. And I'm just like, oh, my God, stop singing, girl. You're in this horrible place. It was bad. It was so bad. But that's, I don't know how I got to that. Theater.
Yeah, theater. We're both in theater. We both work in the theatrical arts.
Yes.
Yeah. That was a good opening. You said you didn't know how to do openings, but that was a good opening.
There you go. Theater. So what got you into theater? Like, what is your background?
So I got into theater. It's weird because I guess I was like doing theater in high school and then in college. And in high school, I never really was like, I was like the guy who was like, look over there, hero. Like but I always liked being in plays and like looking at backstages. And so in college I did theater, and then I did a lot of sketch comedy. And then I went to Swarthmore College, and they kind of like encouraged us to like put stuff up in the Philly Fringe Festival. So I got used to like making stuff ourselves. And so I started doing sketch comedy, and then kept doing it, and kept doing theater, and kept directing, and still doing that. And so that's
Was there any like moment that got you into the arts, or
no? That's the thing that feels weird. It just was like, oh, I like doing this. I guess I like stories. I like storytelling. I feel like I often like talk more honestly about myself through stories than through like saying actual things. So I think I just liked being around it, and then at a certain time I was like, oh, this is what I do with my time, and this is I like doing this with my time, and so that's what it is.
Yeah. And what was it like growing up in New York and doing that?
New York is really fun. I think I didn't really take advantage of theater in high school as much. I guess I saw some things, like I guess my dad would take me to the Classical Theater of Harlem, which is like still one of my favorite theaters. But like growing up in New York, it feels very similar to growing up in other places. I guess like you don't drink in basements, you drink in stairwells of apartments. Like it doesn't feel particularly. I sometimes feel like it doesn't feel that different, but it was good. I can't imagine really living anywhere else. So yeah.
I always dreamed of living in New York when I was in California. Now I'm here and I'm like, why is everyone yelling at me all the time?
Yeah, everyone is angrier and less appreciative of the simpler things, maybe.
Yes. Yeah, I grew up in California. And everyone was just very calm. At least in the area I grew up in. It was Riverside, so it wasn't even LA. It was just like in between the desert and LA.
Do you want to go back to California?
I don't. I really like New York.
Yay!
And no one else seems to like New York. And I'm like, I like it here, despite the other day, a man literally came up to my face while I had my sunglasses and my big headphones on. I had the whole "don't talk to me" face, and he was just like, "Hey, pretty lady," and I was like, "Ah!" And I just like actually just screamed at his face, and he ran away because I wasn't.
He's like, "Shucks, that usually works." Come
up to me, and I was like, "Why am I here? Why is this happening?"
No.
So.
But New York is great.
New York is great. New York is great.
Someone flashed me like on the way from my subway to my house, and I didn't notice that they were flashing me. They just kind of came up to me and were like, and like made eye contact to me. And I took off my headphones and was like, I'm sorry, what do you want? And then I just looked down and realized that their dick was out. I was like, I'm sorry. I say to them, and I keep walking.
You apologize to them.
I think I do that too much. I think that's who I am, really.
Yeah, I apologize a lot too. I'm trying to. In school, in this conservatory, they tried to beat that out of me. They're like, stop fucking apologizing. As they scream at me and I'm crying. And I'm like, I'm sorry for crying.
Maybe just everyone should apologize more. Just be one of those cultures that like has to apologize 10 times before a conversation actually starts.
Yeah, I saw this thing on Instagram. You know the illustrator lady? She's like really big, Marian something.
I don't think I do.
I don't know. She like draws these like fun cartoon things, and it's always like really whimsical and nice. But she had this one where it was, I guess, herself staring at a computer screen, and like the computer screen says things like 5 ways for women to stop apologizing, and like 10 reasons why you should stop apologizing. And her thought bubble was just like, why do I have to conform to this like cold ideal that I need to stop apologizing and stop being who I am? I mean, like, I get both sides of it. But yeah.
No, I feel both sides of it, too. Because I often think people who don't apologize often should be apologizing more often.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, that's that.
So, yeah.
Do we want to pause for the AC, or do you want to get right into it?
I feel like we're in it. We should keep going.
Okay, let's get into it.
If the audio abruptly stops in the middle, you'll just know that we had to turn on the air conditioner because I died for a short period of time. But no, let's keep going. I'm going to talk about Crispus Attucks. Is that how it goes? Yeah?
Yeah, I usually ask like a question that I'm still trying to workshop. First it was, who are we bringing to life today? Second was, who are we bringing into the room today?
Okay.
And now I'm just like, what? Just go. Just go. What do you think?
Who we're bringing to life today
is
Crispus Attucks.
Yes.
Okay. And who are we bringing into the room today? I don't know if we're bringing him into the room. He seems like a mystery sometimes, and I think I like that about him. So we're bringing me into the room, and I will say why I like Crispus Attucks, and you'll hear... And just in your mind while you're I know you've never seen me before, but in your mind while you're picturing this as a movie, just picture me as Crispus Attucks. Okay?
Awesome. I can't wait.
Great.
Let's get into it.
All right. Okay. So I'm just going to start telling a story.
Yes. Go for it.
Great. Okay. So Crispus Attucks is the first man who died in the Revolutionary War. We'll set the scene.
It's 1770. We're in Boston, Massachusetts, and it's real tense there. It's real tense because as quick of a history lesson as I can remember. The British, have colonial rule over the 13 colonies. And the people aren't happy about it, especially in Boston, and especially in the shipping industries. And Crispus Attucks is in I don't think they call him a shipping industry. I think he's a stevedore, but he works on ships. And someone described him as the type of man to kind of like throw a harpoon at a whale. He like seems really tough and strong, right? And in this time, shipping people are kind of mad at the British soldiers who are occupying Boston. And I think the shipping people are particularly mad because it seems like or from what I've read, from the sources I've discussed this with, the soldiers compete with the shipping people for jobs. And so they often undersell them for jobs, so the shipping people are mad when they come back from sea and the job's taken by a soldier. It's crazy to imagine, though, that a soldier has a second job when he's occupying a country, but this is the world. And so in particular, there's this one moment in 1770, I'm gonna tell you the exact day. I feel like I would have just failed fifth grade if I lived in Boston.
I mean, I didn't even know that soldiers were competing for jobs. I thought it was just taxes, and then they were really mad about no taxation without representation.
That's also a thing. That's happening. Taxation without representation. Okay, so this happens on March 5th, guys. This is happening. I know you were kept in limbo for a minute there, but this is March 5th, 1770. And what happens is there's a British soldier who refuses to, like, pay a barber. Yeah. And everyone gets mad. And the person who gets mad in particular is Crispus Attucks. And there's descriptions of him leading like 30 people towards these soldiers as they're kind of berating this barber who is like, pay me. And the British soldier's like, no. And he like pokes him. There's like a description of him being like poking this guy in the chest, like a grade school bully. Crispus Attucks comes through with 20 or 30 men. There's descriptions of him, and he has a stick in his hand, and he has a stick in his other hand. Because multiple people remember him giving another man a stick and saying, this one's for you, and let's go. And basically what happens in short is there's like, a protest type scene where the Bostonians are mad, and Crispus Attucks slugs this guy in the face with a stick, a soldier, and then the soldier shoots him, and he becomes the first man who dies in the Revolutionary War. Because technically, I guess the Revolutionary War hasn't started yet at the time of the Boston Massacre, but it's like used as propaganda to like rally the whole country. Do you know what I mean? Like, not only are taxes crazy, not only is this like specific stevedore job situation hard in Boston, but like people are being shot in the streets, and so like 5 people died that day. I think maybe people would die later of their wounds, and he starts the first man dead in the Revolutionary War. And now I think the thing about Crispus Attucks is he's a black man, and I think people don't really think about that when they think about this country and who was the first person to die. And Crispus Attucks is a black man. That's how my mother told it to me, I guess, because she loved that poem about Paul Revere, like the Midnight Ride of Paul Revere. Mm-hmm. I wish I could recite it, but I can't. Like, listen now, children, and you shall hear the Midnight Ride of Paul Revere is like how it begins. Like, I feel like that was in a lot of children's book. Do you remember that?
I have a vision right now of, it was like a Charlie Brown version of it, and I remember.
Yeah.
Who's the guy with the blanket?
Right, that's who would do it. Linus.
Linus is on the horse, and it was like made into a Charlie Brown version, and I see Linus on the horse right now in this like childhood memory of mine, but I don't remember the poem.
Yeah, this is one of those stories that you hear as a kid and then internalize and then forget for forever. But yeah, so Crispus Attucks is a black man, and it's a big thing because, this country's not too nice to black men in any of its 200 and some year history. And so it's really interesting. My mother really always pointed that out to me. I'm black, I'm mixed, and we'll get into that in a bit, but like my mother was always like, just remember the first man to die in America was a black man. And it's often like Crispus Attucks isn't necessarily forgotten. He's actually he's mentioned often in history, or sometimes it comes in poems, but it comes in and out of like kind of like movements for equality in America, I guess. So like during the abolitionist movement, during slavery, Crispus Attucks is brought up a lot, and Dr. King mentions Crispus Attucks in like one of his speeches. And then I'm gonna give you a couple quotes. Here's a Stevie Wonder song. Oh no. Okay, yeah. The Stevie Wonder song is "The first man to die for the flag we now hold high was a black man." And even Nas, great Queens rapper, had a line that was "Crispus Attucks, the first blasted." And I like that. It's the first man blasted in America was a black man. Anyway, so like he comes in and goes in like with history, and like I think is like this interesting thing about how America views itself, about like who are we? Are we like the rough guys who, if we have to pay too much for tea, will fuck up some soldiers? Do you know what I mean? Or it's interesting to think of like one of the founding stories of America is a black man who's kind of shot by the police of the time. And when you think about it that way, I think the story becomes much more interesting and intense. I mean, because it's like when we think, I guess I think about founding myths, is like it's not just a story that has played out, but kind of continues to play out. And I sometimes wish we were the country to realize that, like, oh, the important thing about us is that we like stood up to the police. Do you know what I mean? Or that we like, and so I think that's why I like him in particular. But the aftermath of the story becomes even more strange when realizing he's a black man, because after the Boston Massacre happens, the soldiers who shoot everyone have to go on trial. There's like a big hullabaloo about shooting these guys. And so John Adams, one of the founding fathers, cousin of the Samuel Adams, who we now all drink beer from, he takes on, reluctantly, he says, the defense of the men, of the British soldiers who opened fire in the streets. It's also used as like a propaganda tool because like a lot of like patriots are like reprinting the story of this. There's poetry that's coming out of it. They're shipping out like engraven images. So John Adams takes the defense because he's like, any man who's accused of a crime should have defense. Like, this is not my deal. Like, I usually don't defend British soldiers, but like, this is America's stories. We defend anyone. And John Adams successfully defended every one of the British soldiers who shot into the crowd. And they didn't have any charge of murder against them, but 2 were found guilty of manslaughter. And what their punishment for manslaughter was to have like a brand on their thumb, which was weird. I didn't know that was the thing that we did.
Yeah.
So that was that's what they faced with for murdering 5 people. But Adams' defense, lawyerly defense of why these guys didn't deserve to be, I guess, punished for the crime of shooting civilians. It was, Adams said the crowd that rebelled against the soldiers, meaning the Bostonians, were a crowd of, quote, a motley rabble of saucy boys, Negroes and mulattoes, Irish and outlandish jack tars. Wow. Which is even crazy because then he said in particular he says, oh, this is another thing. In particular, he charged Attucks, our hero Crispus Attucks, as undertaken to be the hero of the night, and he precipitated this conflict with a, quote, mad behavior. And again, we think like, oh right, like we still tell the same types of stories about who deserves to be shot, and it's like, oh, people of color, which is strange because most of the people who were killed, the only black person was Crispus Attucks. You know what I mean? But it's like, but the way you justify shooting protests is by going, they're a bunch of saucy boys and Negroes. You know what I mean? Like, it's crazy. It's like the story feels to be rebirthed in some way now. I don't know.
Yeah. So at the time, was he just a normal citizen? He was not a slave? Okay.
So yeah, this is the great question, because then in history, people, wonder often if Crispus Attucks was even black. This is the thing I didn't know about, that there is some actual debate about whether he's black or not, because I think there's often evidence that he's also Native American. But I think this is another thing that made me resonate. I didn't realize I would resonate with Crispus Attucks more, because I'm black, but I look mixed. I look like I'm like a Rorschach test of ethnic identity, and then if you want to identify with me, you'll like say I look like you, except if you're white. But other than that, like most people have a cousin who kind of looks like me. So when I say like I'm black, people go like, he's black. but people did this to Crispus Attucks as well, and we have historical documentation of it. So, who was Crispus Attucks? The people who think he's black because there's an escaped slave notice for him. They think he was a runaway slave who joined this fleet of whalers, and he hunted whales, a free man in Boston. And they think he's... So, where's the quote here? Sorry, I took notes on this like it was a 7th grade English quiz, and I'm really excited to read quotes.
I love quotes.
Okay, so this is the quote they think is about Crispus Attucks, but they don't know. So this is, ran away from his master, William Brown of Framingham, on the 30th of September last, a mulatto fellow, about the age of 27 years, named Crispus, 6 foot high, 2 inches, short, curled hair, his knees nearer together than most is common. Which is yeah. Had on a light-colored bear coat or a brown wool one, and blue yarn stockings. So that's what they think is like, oh, he was a runaway slave. And that's where the story comes from. And I think also because his name Crispus, and this is another fact that I didn't know, Crispus, they were like, oh, that's a black name. Crispus is a black name. This is like a real reductionist view of how historians think, but they're like, oh, Crispus is a black name because apparently slave owners named their slaves after Roman emperors. And there's a Roman emperor named Crispus or something, or like a Roman general named Crispus. And they're like, okay, he's black. But the other half of his identity could be that he's Native American because the name Attucks is specifically for, I think there was like a Native American group and they had like this name Attucks. And here's a description so there's no descriptions of his race in any of the newspaper publishings at the time of the death. Though there are etchings of like a black man kind of shot and like the crowd around him. So then after he died, and as people remembered him, especially during the abolitionist movement, there were attempts to like figure out who he was or what he was. You know what I mean? Okay, so this is from an account published in 1860, which would be, I guess, 90 years after. They're saying someone's grandmother remembered him. Oh. And the Liberator newspaper read, several persons are now living in Natick who remember the Attucks family. Chris, who was killed on March 5th, which is weird because that's not his name. Chris, I guess it is. Like Chris. Yeah, Chris. Chris, who was killed on March 5th. Sam, who's abbreviated into Sam Attucks or Smattucks. Sal, who is also known as Slattucks. Peter, who is called Pete Attucks.
I feel like this is a Dr. Seuss.
I know, but this is a historical document I'm reading to you right now. My mother, still living at age 90, remembers Sal in particular, who used to be called the gourd shell squaw, from the fact that she used to carry her rum in a gourd shell. The whole family are said to be the children of Jacob Peter Attucks. It has been conjectured that they are probably of Indian blood, but all who knew their descendants just described them as Negroes. Which is, again, is an interesting thing about America. We didn't quite bother to learn your ethnicity. We just generally knew you. Anyway, so this is Crispus Attucks. This is his... This is who he was, and I think there's something interesting about trying to like revisit who a man was and what it says about the country, and it's kind of interesting that there's some debate about.
So there was like no information about like his childhood or like.
No, because I guess the earliest thing is I guess the runaway notice, because I guess that's the only time you need documentation when you own slaves is that they're not doing their job and I need to get them back, which is fucked up. So that's the first thing, and that was in 1750. So they believe he was freed for a number of years and working on a whaling ship before then. But there's another description of him as, quote, belonging to a whaling ship, which just feels weird. You know what I mean? And then, so I think they have some marriage records, and then they have other people named Attucks, and it seems to be I think the Narragansett people up there was like how they connected him. And then there's like a number of questions about like, well, how dark was he? And like, does mulatto count as a legal class at the time? Yeah. Or was it just like, it's pretty brown? Do you know what I mean? Like, it just seems so American. It seems like describing anyone from Latin America as Mexican. Do you know what I mean? He has a rich cultural history, but we just generally knew him. Like it always just seems so strange to me when these these things that you think are particularly modern, or these particular, like, I guess, like, I don't know, polite ways of being racist, are also, like, even when they were, like, flat out slave owners, they were still polite racists with these descriptions.
Yeah, I mean, now everything makes sense now with, like, the white liberalism.
Right.
I'm just like, oh, wow, it was always like this.
Right. The first man who can die for your country can be a black man, but you don't have to think about race. Because, you know.
Exactly. Wow, that's so... I would want to know, like, why he was even motivated to be a part of this massacre / riot.
That's how I learned about the stevedore job competitiveness. Because people really don't know, because it doesn't necessarily benefit him to... I mean, like, I think there was... well, I guess this happens later, but, like, England... abolishes slavery before America does, and England, in an attempt later in the Revolutionary War, attempts to win black people over to their side by saying, we'll free you if you fight the British, and America, you know, will still have slavery forever. So there's some, so it doesn't quite make sense. I mean, like, it doesn't quite make sense as a native person. Doesn't make sense. But as a stevedore or as a whaler man, this job competitive thing is what seems the historians are pointing to.
Yeah, I didn't even know that was a thing. Like, I honestly, in my history class, it was just like King George.
Right.
Was being a dick, basically.
Yeah, I never learned about this either. I think I just learned about it just because they had to find a reason for why you would.
And that was basically it. King George was a dick, was taxing America, and then we went to war over it, and that was basically it. That's all I learned, at least.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was really interesting. I never knew about this guy.
Yeah, Crispus Attucks, the first blasted.
I love it. I'm actually going to play... We can play, like, part of the song, right? Without someone coming over. Don't sue me. There's nothing that you can gain.
Yeah.
I live in a 1-bedroom. I have a cat that I think you're getting allergic to.
I'm sorry if I've been scratching or rubbing my eyes a little bit more as the interview has continued.
No, but I was just like, I feel so bad. Just laying there.
No, it's okay. I can handle a lot. I can handle a lot of cat hair. The thing is, I love cats. Cats are my favorite.
I love cats. I mean, I used to hate them, which was weird.
Oh, wow.
I used to have a dog up there. He's dead. Obviously.
Okay.
He's in that box
What
now.
we're looking at right now for the audience is a ghost that's hovering about 4 feet above the living room.
It's a picture of my Pomeranian that people used to be really nice to, because I would walk him around and they'd be like, what a cute dog. And I'm like, thank you.
Yeah.
He's
Have you ever tried to walk your cat?
I have. He has a leash. He gets really freaked out if I try to take him outside of this apartment, but he's okay with, like, upstate New York outdoors, because I think he thinks I'm going to abandon him, which I think
that's
what his
heartbreaking.
previous owners did. There was some... Yeah, so he gets really, like, paranoid. He, like, claws onto me. But, like, if it's upstate New York, we, like, let him out. And then he's like, yay, I kind of like this. Although a cow charged at him the other time, so...
A cow charged at him?
Yeah, we went to a tiny house upstate. And it was a working farm. And there was, like, cows and goats and sheep and chickens and a pig. What else were there? There was just, like, all these animals just, like, hanging out in this utopian, like, place. Or goats? Did I say goats? Yeah, and then...
Goats deserve to be mentioned twice.
Yeah, and then this cow was, like, obsessed with Hoog. Like, I think it's because he looks maybe like a cow. He has cow patterns.
That's accurate.
Yeah, and then this cow was, like, entranced by him. He, like, kept staring at him and would, like, come closer, and of course Hoog would be really freaked out. Yeah. And the second time we brought him out, the cow saw him again and started running after him and was like in love with him or something.
Yeah. It's like maybe the beautiful, like one of those memes about animal friendships, you could say.
Or it was kind of like how I imagined it was the skunk and that cat, you know? That
That
or no,
rapey skunk. Pepe Le Pew.
Yes. They should make that into a musical. It would be better than Comfort Women. I'm sorry.
It would be messed up if people got more offended by that, though.
Yeah, I'm still thinking about it. But, yeah, this was amazing.
This was really fun. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, is there anything you would like to add or anything you hope that more people need to think about in society?
Oh, the only thing I wrote down that I didn't say is that Crispus Attucks makes an appearance in Luke Cage season 2 or season 1. He's mentioned. Luke Cage has a monologue about him.
There you go.
keeping history alive. Yeah.
I need to watch Luke Cage. I haven't.
You don't need to watch Luke Cage, but you can. It's fun.
Everyone says I should. Another show I haven't watched is Handmaid's
Oh, Handmaid's Tale you need to watch, but that feels like homework after a certain point.
I don't want to. I feel like it will hurt me.
Yeah, it will.
Yeah, I don't want to watch things that hurt me. I just watch The Office.
Don't
like
do it.
Times.
Yeah.
Don't do it.
I feel like The
Gal
Office
says,
hurts me, actually.
Why?
Because I feel in such pain anytime I see characters so embarrassed. I don't know, something about me is like, no, and I can't take it. Yeah.
I love it. I just want to be Kelly. That's like...
Oh, yeah, she's amazing.
During this film and TV class, they were like, we were talking about our types, and I was just like, I'm just Kelly from The Office. Just cast me as that. That's me. But...
Well, they're going to do a remake of The Office, I heard.
Oh, yes.
Take it.
Could just be.
Which one's Kelly?
She's Mindy Kaling's character,
okay,
and she's the one that's like always with this toxic relationship with Ryan.
There's like a quote in this, she's like Princess Diana's funeral was the saddest funeral I've ever been to. That and my sister's. It's my favorite joke of all time.
I just love when Ryan becomes like not CEO, but like executive of the company.
Yeah.
And he comes in to talk to them, and he's like, "Oh, does anyone have any questions?" And she's just like, "Yeah, I have many questions. Number one, how dare you?" And I'm just like, that's me. I love her so much. Yeah. So, The Office.
The Office.
Tale.
On Netflix and Hulu now.
Other plugs. I don't have any plugs, but you already plugged your show.
Oh, yeah. If you want to Google Marina and Nico, we have some stuff on Funny or Die and The New Yorker, and we've got some good sketch comedy that you can find. Just Google Marina and Nico.
Yeah, and they recently came out with a video for if you are pregnant, maybe you'll enjoy it. I enjoyed it, and I'm not pregnant.
Yeah, so we made a parody series of the what to expect when you're expecting videos called What I Expect When You're Expecting, and there's a woman named Sandie Dunlap who has some pretty wild theories about what's going on in your uterus. So she wants to share them with you. There are 12 videos. We find them and watch them all. What I Expect.
Yes. It's so funny. Watch it. All my friends are getting pregnant, so I found it hilarious. Yeah, so thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you, Crispus Attucks.
Crispus Attucks, the first blasted.
For being I'm not thanking you for being the first blasted.
Well, America does. You gotta. This is what I didn't say. This is the image I'll leave you on. We're just gonna have this one image. Imagine this in your heads. It's Crispus Attucks. Did I say this? He's walking, leading a crowd of 30 people, and someone gives. Oh, we said that.
The sticks.
Never mind. I just love that stick image so much. Imagine just giving your friend a stick and going, "This one's for you," and then just smacking a soldier in the face.
In a previous episode, we talked about what we would do in a purge-like scenario.
Oh yeah.
I said I would just lay down and die.
I'm on that boat.
Okay, so there you go. So,
I mean, I like the Crispus Attuckses of the world, but I am a lay down and die person.
We are not Crispus Attuckses. I can't pronounce his name for some reason.
It feels like a tongue twister.
Yeah.
Crispus Attucks.
Crispus Attucks. Yeah. But he's a brave soul for trying to save his whaling job. Thank you.
Thank you.
And that's a wrap.
Did you go on an outro yet?
I didn't.
Not yet. Okay.
I need a workshop and outro.